ask you, this may be a really weird question to ask because it's like, I know everybody wants to talk about the witchy stuff and everybody wants to talk about the magic, but I'm like, how much did you know about plants before you started this book? And how much did you have to learn about plants in order to write this book?
So it's funny that you bring up the O Murder podcast because you and I had talked a lot about winter mint at the time. I think it was winter mint. It's one of the mints that is like poisonous, and if you consume it, like even like a moderately small amount, like it could definitely kill you. And so you're talking about this possibility, like I'd always wanted to work in this death by mint, and I thought it would be very funny.
That's a good title.
Death by mint, perfect. Yes, for like an Agatha Christie sort of vibe. So I think I've always been interested in plants as this form of evolution and knowledge that's been passed down and that's been mostly ignored in Western society, especially in America. And so I had a lot of background just like interest wise, but I had to learn most of what is in the book fresh, which is really fun because I think I'm a naturally just curious person. And I had read this book. I don't know if you've heard it, The Light Eaters. Have you heard of this book?
Oh, I have it. And it's like on my unending pile, and I haven't gotten to it yet. Yeah, but I am excited about it.
It's so good. So that was a book that I had known from the industry because it had sold for like a ton of money. And I'm a literary agent. So like I'm tapped into some of the like, what's this big sale? And I was like, a big massive sale for a book about plants? What? And so of course, like I had to read it immediately. And then I understood why. It's all about asking this question. It's a nonfiction book about whether plants are sentient. And so we think the answer is no, like obviously they're just plants, right? But the deeper we dig and the more research we've done, the more people are opening up to this idea that actually like plants display a lot of properties that we think of as being reminiscent of sentience, of having feeling, of being able to communicate. And so I had read that book and I was just enchanted. I took plants that I had read about in that book and I said, what if they had these real properties, but I made them magical. So I amplified them just a little bit. So one of the plants is the Corydalis hemidicentra. And so now these names just roll off my tongue now, which is also just delightful. And that's a plant that camouflages itself depending on where it's growing. So if it's growing near brown rocks, it grows brown. If it's growing near green rocks, it grows green, and it changes all the time. And this was such a cool property that I was like, what if somebody used this plant to give themselves the ability to camouflage? There's another plant, the Dracaea lividea, which is a type of orchid.
The hot and spicy plant.
The hot and
everybody
spicy plant.
is gonna want to get their hands on this plant after they read
for good reason. It's an orchid that mimics the pheromones of male wasps, so that male wasps will think it's a lady wasp and come and pollinate it. And so you can imagine that in the wrong hands, such a plant might be fun to play with.
Yeah, and you don't just attract wasps. You will learn in the book. Not just wasps.
Not just wasps. Not just wasps.
Preferably not wasps at all. But
no, can you imagine? It's not that kind of book.
I know, that would be horrifying. Horrifying. But I mean, it could be an interesting way to kill somebody.
Ooh. I love
if you used that and then you got the wasps to attack them.
I love
that. Could work. But that is not, this is way hotter than that.
This is like hotter. Yes, this is not
much hotter. Yeah.
But it's fun. It was fun to do all of that research, looking at actual plants because, as you know, I represent a lot of nonfiction books in my line of work. And so I love ideas. I love feeling like you learn something. And then getting to put all of that real plant knowledge into a book where you're reading about like witchy, magical stuff happening was really fun.
That's so great. Yeah, because I was like, either you've been gardening for years and like just really were like, I got to put it in here. Or it was like, I'm dying to know more about plants. And what better way to learn something more about something than to write a novel about it? I mean, that's what I always like. It's like, how can I get the thing that I'm currently obsessed with into a book and then just obsess about it more?
Yes, that was exactly what I did. And so for the entire time I wrote that book, I was like going around plant shops and talking to plant shop owners and like, just like soaking up information wherever I could get it.
Well, this led to one of the coolest things I've read in a book recently, which is a house filled with plants that can maintain itself.
Mm.
So, can you say more about the house? Because I was obsessed with the house. And
Oh, I
sadly,
think so
my
too.
house plants tend to get really sad and feeble. And then I have to talk to them and try to bring them
Mhm,
back.
mhm,
I mean, maybe
mhm.
that's why you pulled the death card right before we got on here, is
I
because
did. It's proof of it.
it's a message from my house plants saying, please do better. Um, so reading about that house, I was just like, how did that idea come together? And how much fun was it to write about that house?
Oh my God, it was so much fun because I have this dream too of just being able to enter my oasis of plants that are self sustaining in my house, where I don't have to do anything. They just take care of themselves and like to enjoy the fresh air that results of their existence. Like, oh, what a dream. So I knew that I wanted this character, Raven, to have a connection to her mother who had passed away. And I knew that it would have been hard for her to maintain some sort of connection over time, but I wanted to have that symbolized through something. And since they both practice plant magic, I thought this would be a great way to do that, of having that nurturing force coming about, like that ancestral nurturing force coming about through plants. And so Raven enters this house that was once owned by her mom, and she sees that it's filled with all of these plants that shouldn't exist because they're all a little bit magical. One of them are bioluminescent plants, which are real, but they're only made in labs, where they take the genes from bioluminescent mushrooms and insert them into like petunias, is what they've done. And you could actually buy them online, like in very limited supply for a short time. These bioluminescent, like glow in the dark plants. And so she enters the room and she's filled with these like glow in the dark plants. And they're just kind of like touching her and like reaching out for
Mhm.
her. And you got to talk about all of the little plant parts that I thought were fun to talk about. And you enter this next room, and there's this giant wisteria chandelier that, like, comes like blooms and kind of like swells in her presence. Like they're very excited. So I wanted this sense of like this nurturing maternal force coming about through nature. And I chose to do it through plants. Yeah, because they practice plant magic. That was it.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, they sustain themselves. So these are plants that, have learned how to adapt to the house and how to take care of each other and how to, like, fix the broken mortar in the
That was my favorite part. I'm
Mhm.
like, these plants are fixing the
Ugh.
floors. Like,
'Cause
incredible.
'Cause you can do it, like, with rhizomes, it's like the little legs of, like, moss. Like, you could do it, and for centuries, people have, built whole houses with plants, and so why not have plants that could fix a house too?
It's so cool.
Ah, thank you so much.
My goodness. Yeah. That was just like, I was like, oh, this house. I want to go to this house.
Me too.
I know, right? That's the frustrating part when you're writing it and you're like, I just want to be in my world. So that was another thing. So your first novel was in a very different genre than this one.
Mhm,
And I have been wanking on about how unfair it is that writers get stuck in a lane, and
mhm,
that if they have some idea that is in a different direction, that it's very unusual to be able to shift gears. But you've
mhm,
been able to do that and write this book, which it was so interesting to read this book having read your other one, because I saw so many themes
mhm.
that crossed over, even though it was such a different,
Ah,
like the intensity of relationships between female relatives. And there was sort of a situation in The Hunter where it appeared there might be magic, but there
mhm,
was a logical explanation. But here it
mhm.
was like, why not just have it be magic, be the explanation? So I could see how this happened. But I'm wondering if you can talk about having an idea and moving into a different genre and what that process was like.
Yeah, when I wrote The Hunter, I was writing it, I think, in 2020 and 2021. It felt like a very different time. It felt like I really wanted to say something political. It felt like a very dark time as well in many, many ways. And so I gravitated toward The Hunter, toward that style of writing. But then when I came to write this book, which is a fantasy, but it's a witchy fantasy. It's very grounded, it's very accessible. I felt like people just wanted an escape. They wanted
Mhm.
a big house filled with plants that love them back and don't need them to remember to water them or else they'll die. Like, we just want something that feels immersive and that feels hopeful. And it doesn't shy away from the dark elements. I think that's always going to be a feature of my personality, for better or for worse, that like I like to see it all. Like, I it's never gonna be super, super cozy. Um, but when I was writing this, I was really, cognizant of the fact that I wanted readers to come away with a sense of escape that maybe wasn't, necessarily a goal before. And it was hard shifting genres because a thriller is so contained, right? There's a dead body and a detective, and then they solve the crime, right? You know exactly what's gonna happen even if, the in-between stages are really different. But for a fantasy, there are no bounds on what you can do. And that means, it was almost like going from writing in 2D to writing in 4D, where now it's like you have all of these extra elements that you have to manage that you never had to before.
And so how did you manage that? Because I remember you telling me before, possibly the most compelling and terrifying method of writing I've ever heard in my entire life, which was that you would work on the book and then you would reach a point where you got bored, and then you would throw it all out and start completely over. And
Yeah.
I nearly fainted when you told me that. And I'm like, I really hope you didn't do that to yourself while writing this book.
Okay, first off, your memory is incredible. That was 3 years ago we talked.
I know, I know. But it was really, it
Scarred.
was
You were scarred. I
I
I
was slightly scarred, but also I was like, "Do I wanna do that? I don't know." Spoiler, I have not done it, but I haven't
Good
stopped
for you.
thinking about it.
Mhm, I love all aspects of this, yes. I I still do this.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I still do it because it's like
wow.
because I want to love what I'm doing. And if
Yeah,
something and I think I either have ADD or my husband says I'm just on my phone too much. I don't have ADD. But
okay.
either one, I do get bored easily and I want readers to not get bored. I want them to feel emotionally invested. I want to feel emotionally invested. And usually it's a sign if I'm starting to get bored, it's a sign I've lost like a thread. Like I've lost a piece of something meaningful and I need to go back and figure out what that was. And so sometimes I don't start from scratch. Sometimes I just like delete the last chapter I wrote and then try a new pivot point from there. But yes, I still work with that method. And yes, it is terrifying and horrible.
I love that you took that into the new genre, because I was really curious about the genre, because you do mention in the acknowledgments of the book, like, "Thank you for helping me get
Yeah.
into this new."
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what was the hardest part and what was the most fun part
Ugh.
about switching to a more
Mhm.
fantasy-based
Mhm.
story?
The hardest part was because I had written a thriller the last time, I had a sense in my mind of how many elements I could have, like how many balls in the air could be juggling, basically.
Right.
But I hadn't accounted for magic. And so my initial draft was, I think, 125,000 words, 135. It was massive
Wow.
because I had too many characters and because I had magic. I had all the same
Yeah.
like balls. And then I was like, oh, and I'll just add a magic one and it'll be fine. But it turns out magic is a giant ball. It's like juggling a bowling ball. And when you throw it up, you like have to catch all the other balls and then throw the bowling ball. Anyway, bad metaphor.
And the bowling ball could kill you.
The bowling ball could kill you and then you have to start all over.
Oh my god.
So that was really, really hard to figure out. Okay, given magic, how do I manage the rest of the elements of the book? But once I figured that out, and by the way, I rewrote it 3 times. So if that gives you anxiety or anything, it
No, that sounds
sounds right.
That actually sounds pretty amazing. I'm like, well done. Well done only 3 times.
Only 3 times, that's right, because it's like I kept having to rewrite it until I could do it from memory so that it didn't feel like a big info dump, so it didn't like, it wasn't too much at one time so that it felt really seamless, and my hope too is that as readers read it, it feels like it holds their hand and doesn't let it go, like, it feels like it's followed them along a path and that it feels effortless to read while still meaningful. Um,
Mhm.
so I think the most fun piece to write was this idea of possibility. So I had never been stretched to use my imagination quite so deeply, and like frivolously too, where it's like, like I was thinking about the different personalities that different plants would have. I mean,
Mhm.
like the jade. Well, the jade is jaded. It's probably pissed all the time, and it's like a little sassy. Like you have to give a little extra attention to the jade. Just things like that that I got to be so completely whimsical with in a way that was so much fun. Because now I think about, like everybody has animals or something, right? And your animals have different personalities. I have 2 cats. It's actually their birthday today. They both turned
Oh.
1 today. They're brothers.
Oh, little
But, like,
guys.
they're such little jerks sometimes and
Yeah.
little like, they have these very distinctive personalities. So it's like, well, what if I gave those distinctive personalities to these particular plants?
Yeah, why
Um,
not?
and that was fun because, like, I think the nice thing about writing fantasy is it makes you see your own world differently. So now, I'll look at a tree and I'll kind of wonder about its personality or about, I don't know, what it would say if it spoke. And it's such a joy to be able to walk through your neighborhood and to just see it in new eyes, see it with new eyes.
Mm. You're like, "Hi, guys. How you doing?"
Hey,
I
it's such a
know, as you
joyful
walk
way to
around.
live.
So great.
Mm.
So, oh, I had something, and then I got excited about saying hi to the plants, and then there goes my brain. It's too exciting
Goodness.
an idea. But,
Mhm.
I got it back. So you did a lot of work with Welsh terminology, and I'm curious about how much of the world building and the sort of
Mhm.
particular type of magic that you created or involved in the world. Was there a connection to Welsh lore from there?
Oh, absolutely. So I live in Philadelphia. And when I first moved here, I had a few things that were very confusing to me. One of them was the names of things, which
Oh,
are
that's so true.
right.
Yes.
Ballackinwood.
Yeah.
Uh,
Balaton was crazy.
and you're just like, what? Huh? And you
Yeah.
look at the letters and they don't line up. And there's so many places like that. Bryn Mawr. You're like, what? Bryn
Yeah.
Mawr? And you would try to spell it and you'd never get it right. So I knew that there was this weird alphabet. I guess it's the normal alphabet, but like these weird words that were around. And then I also noticed something else, which is slate. There's blue slate everywhere you go.
Yes.
It is very distinctive and very colorful. Sometimes the sidewalks are made of blue slate. Oftentimes the kitchens or the bathrooms have these blue slate floors. And you're just like, what the heck is this? And so, of course, having my brain, I needed to research it. I needed to figure out why is there so much slate here? And why are there so many Welsh names? And it has to do with immigration patterns coming to Philadelphia. And you had all of these Welsh immigrants come here who came here because of the slate quarries.
Oh.
And so quarry is like, like a mine, but you
Uh-huh.
dig it from the top. And so it looks like a big lake. And so I started to think, okay, well, what if one of my characters had an ancestor who had a slate quarry? And I was going along with this for a while, plodding along, and I was trying to trace out the genealogy. And I was like, wait, but I actually care mostly about the women's stories over time. What if she was a woman who owned her own slate quarry in the 1800s? And then thinking through, well, how could she get people to work for her? Because it was the 1800s. And like, I'm sure that people didn't, have a great respect for women, as CEOs or as entrepreneurs. So I thought, well, she would have had to use magic. She would have had to enchant them somehow. And that being like this original sin going back through, okay, so how would she, she would basically have to steal people's souls in some way. in order to build this empire and to build this place. And so that is like the Welsh piece that came out to the mythology of this place that I live. And then I was looking at different magics. And so I obviously am really interested in plants, plant magic. The Welsh and the Celtic regions have a huge history of using plant magic. So I have some of the weirdest Welsh books. There's one, I think it's called like Welsh, is it Celtic sex magic or something? Like it,
Nice.
yeah, a lot of self-published titles that I have like gobbled up
Yeah.
to kind of learn, okay, what are people talking about in these areas? How as it relates to plant magic? And so that was really fun because one of the books I read, the author is Welsh. Her name's Maurice Starling. She wrote a book called Welsh Witchcraft. And she talks about aspiration, a method of aspiration
Mm.
in one of an ancient Welsh texts. And they, like put powder on their hands and they like blow it. And that was like the magic spreading. And so for me, I decided to use a base of hawthorn tree, since hawthorns are typically seen as sacred, especially in like the Celtic regions, and then adding plant essences to them and like blowing on them. And, the thing that you blow it on is imbued with a magical property.
Cool. Yeah, it's yeah, my grandma lived in Gladwin, so I have
Oh.
seen all of those names
Mhm.
and and actually now that I think about it, I think they built their house, which sadly somebody bought after she moved out and tore it down as they do. But I think the entire floor in it was blue slate, the
Mhm.
first floor. So I'm like,
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, exactly.
That is distinctive.
It's so beautiful. I remember loving that about that house. My grandma was a
Mhm.
probably a plant witch, if we're thinking
Ah.
about it. She did little bonsai. She had so many crazy plants that people would come and go on like paid tours to look at her garden, which had all the little Latin labels everywhere. She was like 4'11". It was totally fascinating.
I love every aspect of the story, every single one. This 4'11" woman with her little Latin labels that people pay to tour her plants and her blue slate floor. Yes.
She had a little
Yes.
greenhouse, everything. So it's like she was cooking up this energy for a while. It's just a shame that the house isn't there anymore. But
Did
I
she teach
feel
you
like
about plants?
I mean, she tried.
Mhm.
I wasn't maybe as interested as I was in other things that she taught me. Like she was good at knitting, and that took a little bit more
Oh, okay.
than the
See,
plant part.
yes, my mom did some knitting. She really cared about herbs a lot, so she taught me a lot about herbs
Mm.
and plants growing up, and we always that was a big piece of my childhood. But the knitting thing, I was so bad at it that every time she tried to teach me how to knit, she was like, "Honey, I think you should try something else."
Maybe you should stick with the plants. Like I got the
Yeah,
knitting, you got the plants. Like my mom is really
yeah.
good with the plants,
Uh-huh.
but my mom was not good at the knitting. My mom could crochet, but no knitting. So
Oh.
maybe it's plants or knitting, possibly. Can anyone who is watching both
Yeah,
knit and is good with plants? I'm
this is
dying
a
to
real
know
question. Yeah.
because
And if you can only do
I need
one,
it.
tell us which one.
Right. I mean, I would love my plants to take care of themselves, as you can see with my fantasy, so I can just keep knitting peacefully and not be so worried about them.
It's amazing, and I would love something to knit for me, so I just wanna own the knitted thing. I don't wanna no, it's too much for me. I can't crochet, I can't knit. My sewing is atrocious. I can do it. Oh.
We could fix this. No, we're only getting LOL. We're not getting nobody can knit and do plants.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know
the
if
name was
this isn't
Tatter.
like a
I thought it was, like, tatting for a second. I was like, "Oh,
oh,
you
I
do
know.
tatting?"
No, that would be great. No, we're just getting like cool paths to these things, cool ideas, etc. But yeah, nobody is sharing that they can knit and do plants.
Maybe it's not possible is what I'm learning. Like, maybe that's just
It may not be, but as a knitter, I was delighted to read about people who were good at plants. I found it extremely soothing to just look at I was like, "Wow, look at all this cool shit you can do with plants." So, I don't know. So,
it's
I
amazing.
was
I want this
interested
to be the
al
blurb for the next book, for the paperback. I want you to do the blurb of, "As a knitter."
as a knitter, I loved reading this book because I am terrible with plants, and this made me see magical elements of plants. Okay, so Tracy says, "I learned to crochet and do easier plants." Okay, so maybe crochet and easier plant
I
care
see.
can overlap, but
I
you
see.
get into the knitting and you get into the advanced plants,
Mhm.
they can't coexist.
Did your grandma did both? She
My
knitted
grandma
and
did
sh
both,
Oh,
but
wow.
maybe it stunted her height is what happened.
You know what's really funny is my grandma was also 5'11". No, 4'11",
5'11". I was
4'11",
like, wow,
4'11".
she was massive. Okay,
No. She
4'11".
might have been 4'10", but she was definitely an inch or 2 under 5 foot. She was so tiny,
It's so tiny,
so tiny.
adorable.
My dream is to be a very short grandmother someday, so I have to I'm sure the
You got to
osteoporosis will
shrink.
kick in as
You got to shrink. You got to shrink right down. You got to put yourself in like a small box and see if you can shrink it.
like
Maybe
a
if you
foot
just
binder.
carry all your research materials around for
Oh, until
subsequent
my spine
novels so
compresses.
that you can press down. Because if you continue to research at this level for each book, then it could happen.
I really like this idea. I think we've solved it.
So also you created this entire lineage of
Mhm.
women. So how was that? Because you went really far back. Like some people would go like a generation or two, but you like went way back
Yeah,
to like the
yeah.
before times. And so
So
I was wondering how it felt to develop all of those characters as sort of the foundation that was holding up Raven in the present day.
Mhm. I think that if we're gonna talk about, like, plant magic, we talk about plant medicine, right? Like, those 2
Mhm.
things are really related, and, the way we experience the world of plants right now is through plant medicine, I would say, more often than magic, probably. So when I think about that, I think about, like, that's knowledge that's typically passed down from woman to woman over generations, right? This idea of like, again, like, my mom would tell me about I don't know, I remember one of her phrases was like, you eat the thing that you want to fix about. Like, if your joints hurt, then you eat joints. Like, that sort
Mhm.
of I don't know if you ever had this kind of information passed down, but like, we would call them old wives' tales or like,
Mhm.
that sort of kitchen wisdom being passed down, and so I knew it had to be passed down over women over generations because like, magic just doesn't spring up. It's a legacy, right? And so I had to go back and figure out what that legacy looked like, and that was looking at 2 points. One was, like, the original sin moment, which was for Frances Wynne, who opened her own slate quarry, who had to, like, ensorcel these quarrymen in order to get them to work for her, and the negative impacts that must have had. And then the other piece was the moment where the magic emerged, and that takes you back to, a sequence from ancient times where, a woman is so overcome by a deep emotion that it literally transforms her. So that was from a myth that I had read in this book called If Women Rose Rooted, which is another
Mhm.
nonfiction book. I love
I
my
love that book.
nonfiction. Oh, you've read it?
I love Sharon Blackie. I've read a number of hers.
Mm.
Also, the women in midlife
Uh-huh.
mythology is so good too.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's really good. You
Um,
like.
this one was telling me about this myth that was discovered. It wasn't discovered until the 1950s, but the myth dates back to ancient times. And it's this woman named Mish who, she's really close to her dad. Her dad goes to battle and he dies on the battlefield and she like rushes up to him and in her grief she starts actually drinking his blood. She's like licking his wounds, but she's like ingesting his
Mm.
blood. And so through the act of ingesting his blood plus this grief, she transforms into this massive, massive bird. And this bird terrorizes a town for over 300 years. And this king is really mad about this because she's messing up his trade route. She's like, proving that she has more power than he does. He doesn't like that. And so he sends all of these warriors to go after her. He sends armies to go after her, and nobody can lay a finger on this giant bird that is killing people. And then this gentleman, his name is Dove Rush, he's a harpist.
Mm.
He says, "Can I give it a try?" And everybody thinks he's crazy. They're like, "What? You like sweet little man? Like you have no chance to beat her." And he goes anyway, and he climbs her mountain, and he, like, undresses. So the myth is very racy. He, like, undresses and lies naked on a
Racing.
blanket, and he's got his big ass harp, and he plays music for her. And she comes down, and she listens at first, and then they, like, sleep together, and, like, slowly her feathers pull off from her, and she remembers that she's human. And I loved this myth so much because it was this moment of, how do you come back from a place of, like, an animal world where you're not feeling like yourself, you feel like you're in the midst of grief, I think is a big piece of that. How do you remember what it's like to be human? You do it through gentleness. You do it through connecting with something creative, something that feels, ephemeral in that way, something, again, gentle. It's not, you don't beat it down. And so incorporating this myth into the story meant creating an origin point for when the magic manifests. And it's when this ancestor Mish turns into a giant bird and terrorizes lots and lots of people and has to figure out how to be human again.
Oh, I love that.
It was fun
I
to
mean,
research.
oh yeah. Well, it's nice when the myths are racier.
No, so racy. And like, so Sharon Blackie recounts the myth in If Women Rose Rooted. And then I found the original myth because I wanted to read it in its original
Yeah, yeah,
form.
yeah.
I did not, I mean, I read it in English. I'll throw that out there. I didn't learn
Fair.
any language for this book outside of the, 10 words that I learned in Welsh. It is racier in the original
Oh, I
form.
bet it
It
is.
it goes into so much detail about the type of sex they have.
Wow.
And just like it was funny though, because it was like, wow, you I hear in my industry too, people decry the rise of romantasy. They don't like the smut in their books. And I was like, listen, it's been there all along. Like
Yeah,
we are actually just in a moment where, for the past 50, 100 years, we have kind of erased that from our books. But the ancient stuff, it's very smutty.
it's so smutty. I mean, look at
Smutty.
Greek vases. You go into a museum, you
Mhm.
look at the collection of Greek vases. Those are smutty. It's
So
great.
smutty.
So smutty. Did you read Ghost in the Throat?
No, what is this?
Oh, do I have it right here? I'm like, oh, I'm so
I
proud
have
of
to do it.
myself. I had no
You
idea we were
have it?
talking about this. This book, you got to read this book.
I'm gonna read that book.
Oh
Well,
my
tell me
God.
about it.
Ghost in the Throat. Okay. So here, I'll just read you the back. So 1773 Cork. So this is Irish, not Welsh. A man is ambushed and shot dead. On discovering her husband's murder, an Irish noblewoman drinks handfuls of his blood and composes an extraordinary poem. Now there's a lot of Irish Gaelic, which I will struggle with. Elin Dooney Channel's, oh my God, I can't do it. Anyway, the name of the poem would later be described as the greatest poem written in these islands in the whole of the 18th century. The poem echoes across time to find a woman in modern Ireland who reads it aloud and feels Eileen's voice coming to life. These echoes grow louder, inspiring her quest to discover the truth of the poet's story. So she becomes obsessed with this poem. She ends up retranslating it herself because she's dissatisfied with that. But at the same time, she's just given birth to her youngest child who was premature. So she's having to think about motherhood at the same time as she's thinking about this primal nature. Because at that
Mhm.
time, in the 1700s, if you were Irish and you were on a horse and an Englishman asked you for your horse and you refused, they were authorized to kill you to take the horse.
I didn't know
So,
that.
so this is what happened. Anyway, I picked this book up because I was like, Ghost in the Throat. What? I'm in. And
Great title.
I just feel like you would
I'm
love
gonna
it
read it.
based on this research. I think you would love it.
I'm gonna absolutely read it. I'm gonna absolutely read it.
Because there's all these stories, I think, of women doing really powerful things that create these stories that resonate, that carry over time. And yet,
Mm.
how do we not know about this?
How do we not know about it? And I think what's nice about it is it shows you that women have been perceived in so many different ways over time. Like right now, I think that, a lot of women, or at least the past 10 years or something, like, have been perceived very daintily, like, very, like, quaintly. And so when you see, like, for instance, like, the Mish myth and your myth as well, but, like, the Mish one I'm more familiar with, I mean, she's, like, ripping out men's throats, like, this
Yeah, she's
giant
smearing
evil.
blood all over her face. She's flying into the
Yeah.
villages. She's taking shit down.
That's right, and there's something so empowering about being like, "Oh, even in ancient times, like, women were perceived in these, like, multifaceted ways that we don't always leave room for now," and how wonderful it is to be able to look at that and to be like, "Oh, actually, I can have these deep wounds, I can have, like, this register of, grief that it doesn't have to be easily contained," and that's kinda cool and beautiful.
Well, that feels like that's one of the central questions of the book, given that Raven starts out thinking that magic is this huge threat that is
Mhm.
causing her a tremendous wound. And then she has to learn to relate to her abilities differently so that I don't want to spoil anything, but it's basically like part of her journey is to figure out how to deal with her own power and how to get comfortable with it, which I think is so
Yeah.
important as well.
I think so too, and that was a big piece of it as well, because I think that, especially early on, she's really moralized about her power, like, she's really told, "Oh, you must be evil, you must be bad because you have these qualities about you. It's important that we have these other figures in your life to kind of tamp you down and to rein you in. You can't be trusted with that sort of power." And I think she buys into this. I think a lot of people buy into this because it's scary. It's scary feeling as though you have a power that you might hurt somebody unintentionally or intentionally. And so I think part of growing up and growing into ourselves is figuring out, okay, well, how do I be both powerful and like maintain my own sense of moral compass and not feel like I need like a daddy figure to kind of like rein me in and keep me in control. And I think like
Yes.
for me, I think that was really beautiful.
Yeah, I think also, yeah, especially when it's a really obsessive, compulsive, controlling stepdaddy figure who is basically no fun to be around.
No fun to be around. His name is Stryker, and he's a surgeon. Because I think this is again, so in my day job, I read a ton of books all the time, like nonfiction. I read stuff that comes into me too, like memoirs that are never published. And I am constantly reading stories about male figures who were really awful people at home, but like really, really valued in the community of like, oh,
Mhm.
he was a surgeon. Oh, he was,
Yeah.
a mayor. He was this really powerful, really kind person. And no one believed me when I said that he was horrible. And so it was really important for me too to like to use that knowledge that I got and just kind of like through reading constantly to be like, oh, this man who's being awful to her, he would look on from the outside as being somebody who is widely respected so that it's a way to say to her of like, oh, you don't have the right to be able to push against that and to show how hard it is to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of wanted to punch him out when I first met him in the book. I
Yeah.
won't lie.
Yeah,
But
he wasn't a good guy, but
well, we don't see him. We see him in his home life. We don't see him in his professional life.
that's right. That's right. That's right. And we don't see him too much. He kind of like he goes by the wayside for a while. But I do think as a foil he is
Yeah.
yeah, he's useful for her growth.
Because I think it's also interesting to look at like different ways of healing because he's very much in a surgical, like you're going to cut out the problem. And
Mm.
it makes sense to me that she, as a character early on, like she's having this physical manifestation of her magic that's not being attended to. And she basically wants to cut it out also, which is what you would think about if you lived with a surgeon.
You're blowing my mind. I didn't know that. But yeah,
But you kind of did. Like, I feel like your unconscious did.
my unconscious did for sure, I think. But you're totally right. You're totally, and she's not, and by wanting to cut out the evil part of her or the bad part of her, she's buying into a narrative of like there is a bad part of her that shouldn't exist or a bad part of her versus learning to embrace herself as a full person who has good and bad in her as we all do. Oh my gosh. Okay. I never saw that. That's I think one of my favorite things about getting to talk to people about, like, stuff you've worked on is they see patterns and you're like, "I didn't know that was there, but now that you pointed out, oh my gosh, that was there." 'Cause, you
Well,
just, like, you subconscious do your thing.
it's just fun to read stuff, and it's really I mean, this is the thing, though, it is kind of heartbreaking. It's like you work so hard on writing something, and it's like we have the whole write the thing that you wanna read, right? And I feel like I can feel that this was the kind of book that you wanted to read, and yet, as the author, you never get to read it like a fresh reader, which I'm like, "Oh, that's always kind of a it's kind of a
Well
heartbreaker."
well, so I kind of do. So this is the strangest thing, but I got a narrator for the book who is she's a Scottish actress and,
Oh,
like,
nice.
producer who's doing an American accent, and it's wonderful
Ugh.
because, her name's Sorika Groundsell. You can look her up, she's so phenomenal, but I love her American accent because it's a little otherworldly, like, you get the
Yeah.
sense that she's, like it's not quite perfect, so she
Mhm.
seems a little off, like, she seems like she's between worlds, which for me is, like, how I picture Raven as well, like, she's living
Yes.
between this world of, like, non-magic and this world of magic, and she doesn't kind of know where her footing is, and she has such this, like, eerie haunting voice that's, again, like, a little bit off that I just love her narration so much. So I've been listening to the audiobook because I got an early copy, and that actually has been like reading it again,
Oh,
or reading it for
nice.
the first time.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna happen, but I've never heard her say it quite that way
Yeah.
before. I imagine it's like if you're a playwright and then you see
Yep.
your performance on stage for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh. Because they add something, like, the actors add something
Yeah.
to it, and she added something else as well that I didn't know how to articulate, but she did it, which was so
That's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah, and her
Yeah, I
Welsh is
find
very good.
excellent. I know, it's so those different aspects. I mean, you could never get an American actor to do.
That was the problem. So we had
Yeah.
looked at a bunch of narrators trying to, do, like, Welsh accents for again, it's
Yeah.
like the epigraphs for the older
Yeah.
generations, and then there was a lot of Welsh words or phrases used throughout. And I just couldn't find anybody who could do it. So we had
Yeah.
to find somebody who could do an American accent for the entire 10-hour book.
I know, I'm like, what about the woman who was the she's in Torchwood, that series, and that she's Welsh, but I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I bet she could do an American I mean, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
I love how I'm, like, trying to troubleshoot. I'm like, "Who can I think of?"
I
But
love
that's
it.
often true, is you often get British actors who are able to do an American accent, but it's more unusual. People can do, like, a BBC, like, received
Yes.
pronunciation
Yeah.
English, but the regional stuff is much harder.
Well, and so I looked up before I, like, hired her, the publisher
Yeah.
hired her, before I agreed to her, I looked up clips of her, and she's on a show on BBC in Scotland, and she does, like, Scottish Gaelic as well for part of the show, and so just, like, listening to her and seeing her, I was like, "Yep, that's her. That's her." But it was fun to
Nice.
just see, like, how many I don't know, I felt very sad to be an American. I was like, "Wow, we really just have, like, this one language really, or 2 languages sometimes," but it's not like
Mhm.
can't always switch between them as well as maybe somebody else.
I know. There are regions, though. Like,
There
we
is.
definitely have regions.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
and
you
I feel like
think
you and I,
about
like, we speak a lot of languages, so that's nice, but it's not as seamless, like, you wouldn't see as many shows, I think, where you're constantly switching between languages. I mean, I guess maybe between Spanish and English.
yep, I could see that. But yeah. So, are you I know this is the question that I feel like every author wants to reach through and punch me in the face, and I would wanna punch them in the face if they asked me this. But having just done all of this enormous amount of work to put this book together, do you feel like you wanna continue writing in this genre? Do you have other ideas coming up? Are you like, "You know what? I wanna genre hop again, try something completely different. Why not?" And, like, what are you feeling about
Mm.
looking ahead from this story?
It's a really great question. I think it'll really depend. I mean, this is such a cop out, but it's, like, gonna depend how readers respond to the book.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's like an overwhelming response of like, yes, this is what people wanted and they feel like they got a lot out of it and they want more like this, and I'll be like, yes, I will. I have ideas. I'm always thinking
Mhm.
of ideas. Um, and if for some reason like it's not landing, then that'll be a bigger question of like, okay, how? Because again, I'm an agent. Like in the back of my
Yeah.
head, uh, for better or for worse, that's always going to be something that I'm always thinking about the market as well.
Yeah.
But it's not like a soulless way of doing it because I think people contain multitudes and there's no like I read across 1,000 different genres, right? So
Yeah.
it's not too much of a stretch if I needed to switch again. But that said, I really love this book and I really hope that I get to keep writing books like this because it was so, I think, therapeutic to realize that you can create your own world. Like you can create
Mhm.
your own reality, your own way of seeing, your own like lens through which to view your life. And I think one of the things that fantasy does particularly well is it gives you this very strong sense of wonder and joy and presence. And you see the world again with possibility, not kind of like shutting the door on things, right? Like a thriller,
Mhm.
it's like, it almost makes you scared of other people sometimes because it's like, oh, that could be a killer. Oh, I need to be suspicious. Like the
Yeah.
headspace of that is very, I guess it's no surprise I wrote a thriller during COVID. But like the headspace of there is very isolating. Whereas I feel like the headspace you're in when you're writing a fantasy is so expansive. You're like, how can I connect to the world in a new way? How can I connect to people, and to plants and to animals and to feel more of that oneness that I think for most people is something that we want. So long way of saying I would love to keep writing fantasy and I hope I get the chance.
I hope you do too. I think because I feel like the characters, like, I could see even staying in this world and having, like, how did Cherry get to the point where she was? We know
Mm,
we meet Cherry. Cherry's having a really rough time, but like, how did that start? Where did that? What's her? And we know that she doesn't know her family at the beginning, and
yes.
and so there's.
Yes.
I'm like that could be a whole thing, and
Yes, I
then
mean mhm. If there's
and then
another
I'm
book
also
in this
like.
series, it would be with Cherry as a big piece of it. Mhm,
And then I was like, okay, but you've also got these other generations of women.
mhm,
I mean, do we want to go through and see the beginning of the quarry? Like, do we want, like, you could go in different parts of time. You could, I mean, I think that there's a lot that could be done in this world that would
mhm.
feel really different and interesting.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I play around with too is so the magic in this book is not just plant magic, it's plant
Mhm.
plus animal. So the idea is that every lineage of woman has a type of magic they practice, and it's either, um, it's usually a type of soul magic. And then there are also like you can have soul magic, spirit magic, body magic because of the principles of alchemy. And again, I've read way too many books about plant magic, but the idea is that everything is comprised of three parts: the soul, the spirit, and the body. And so I wanted these to be three different branches of magic. And so every lineage of women has a type of soul magic. And they also have some special connection to an animal. And so for her, again, because it was really motivated by this mish myth, that animal is crows and ravens, just
Mhm.
corvids generally. And so I would love to also, I've been thinking a lot about whether or not there are other families associated with different animals, other
Oh.
types of soul magic, like just
Or is it
playing
just the
around.
women? Because
Hmm.
you have the character Idris who has stone magic, has
Hmm.
abilities with music, but has a mother who clearly has some abilities, but we're not able to talk to her as
Uh-huh.
openly as we would like.
Uh-huh.
And so, could we go back and hear, like,
Hmm.
does that mother have
Hmm.
a different type of
Hmm.
magic that we could access?
Hmm. And one of my favorite things too is like setting up assumptions that you like take the world for granted. Like here's how the system works. Here are the rules. We all know the rules. And then you find an exception to the rules. And then you have to
Yep.
go, oh, wait a second. But I thought this could never happen. And then it does happen. So I think like when you get to the Cherry storyline, like that's a prime example of something that you thought this sort of magic couldn't exist in a person that turns out that it does. And so if, knock on wood, if there's a book 2, I would
Yeah.
in my head, I know what that's gonna be, and I know that it's going to turn some of those assumptions on its head, especially as it relates to, is it only women who can have magical lineages and that connection to animals? And if it's not, then, maybe there's another animal coming on the scene.
Ooh,
I don't know.
exciting.
It's fun to play around with this too, because anytime you talk about, especially like ancient magics, or like as it relates to plants, as it relates to animals, there's so much that already exists in the world, so
Mhm.
many resources and so many existing myths that you can build off of, that the hope is too that the reader feels like they're connecting to ancient stories that, the reason they've lasted this long over time is they actually do contain powerful wisdom. And so maybe not everybody wants to go through and read a million nonfiction books and then consult the original sources and read those. And, maybe not everybody wants to do that. But by reading a fantasy novel that incorporates those, they can feel like they can still gain that wisdom in a more accessible way.
Yeah, that's I think what's so fun about fiction is that you're hooked along by the story, but there are all of these questions that come up that you can then go explore later if you want, or you do
Mhm.
learn things as you go. So, such a treat. I really enjoyed reading it.
Oh,
And
I'm so glad. Thank you for reading it. I know I felt like I had to warn you before I sent you the book of like, this is so different from what I did last time. Please don't expect it to be exactly like last time. It's very different.
no, I know you wrote me that message. It was so sweet. I was like, "Ooh, this is exciting." I was definitely intrigued by, okay, this is gonna be in a different direction, but that's
Did you
always
feel
fun
like
to
it was
see.
jarring? Or you felt like
No.
as a reader, you could like hold both truths at the same time?
Again, like, it didn't feel jarring to me because I've talked to you enough about your writing, like, I could see the topics that you were interested in. It was just like looking through a different prism at, like, family family lineage and disputes and separation and trying to reconcile that and all of those issues, and then men who abuse power, and, like, there were all of these themes that were present in both. It was just, like, exploring it through a different lens, which was really fascinating.
I love this. I need you to talk to every publisher in existence who's like, if a book's successful, you have to write a version of that book for the rest of your life. And
No!
because
No!
yeah, I
No,
think
this
so
drives me
too. I'm
crazy.
with you.
I think there are
Mhm.
so many, like, I yammer on about this, but, the one that I am currently on fire about is Natasha Pulley's The Mars House,
Okay.
which is
Oh,
a
yes.
sci-fi fantasy. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm doing the slow read of this starting in September. Yes, I'm talking about this while I'm talking to another author. I'm very
I love
sorry.
this. No,
But
I'm thrilled.
up to this point, she wrote historical fiction,
Mhm.
did really well with it, and then it was during the pandemic that she was
Mhm.
like, "I don't know, I wrote this thing about Mars." And her agent was like, "Okay." And then they went to her UK publisher, and she says this in the acknowledgments that her UK publisher not only didn't want it and said, "Don't come back to us again in future." Like, despite her having already she does not name the publisher. She's classy, but I, of
That is
course,
not
had to
even a
dig this up.
surprise to me. It is not
Right,
even a
exact
surprise to me.
right? And
Mhm.
so I was just like, and I love this book so much, and I'm like, to think that just because it was different and because she was exploring ideas in a different genre, and this book is so it's so well done, and it's like, you already have a proven author who's doing well, who has explored ideas that writers like, and I can think of so many examples where this has happened, some where it's gone really well, but it's unusual that a writer gets to jump. And
Mhm.
yet, when they do, we often get something wonderful that's
Mhm.
really, really fun to read, as
Mhm.
was true in your case also.
Well, that's so nice to hear, and I think that just like publishing has a really strange perception of what a reader is. Like they think that if someone reads sci-fi, then they're not going to also read romance. Or like, and then if they do, then they have to create a new genre for it. They say, "Oh, you read romantasy now," and that's the genre.
Or
You
you
can't
read
possibly read
sci
romance
romance,
and fantasy. What's that?
scientific romance. I
So
don't know.
romance,
The romance,
so fromance,
the
so
fromance.
like romance.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I don't read like this, you don't read
No,
like this, and
no,
you
I
could
don't know anyone who
recognize.
reads like that. Granted, the people I know are mostly writers who are obsessed with reading,
Mhm.
but like, there's whole genres of people creating stickers and making a living off of making stickers about how great books are. So, if that's true, I feel like those of us who read a lot, and we want to read all of it.
Uh-huh, 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 and I think it's just figuring out, like, how do we show publishers that that's true, that you don't just have to pick a lane and stay in it, but that, like, readers are actually more expansive than that and are interested in more things than just one type of book.
Well, maybe you're going to have to start a revolution.
I think so. I think so.
I'll help.
I was gonna say we could do it together
We could.
from across the ocean.
I know. We'll just like reach across and
That's right.
then we will see.
That's
Well,
right.
this has been such a joy. I knew it would be, but
Oh, it was so fun.
so fun.
I
So right
can't
out of
believe again,
rush.
your memory, 3 years. I cannot believe that the individual
Oh, dude.
pieces you remembered from 3 years ago. You were incredible.
Oh, so are you. So are you.
Oh, we got some hearts.
I know, we're getting hearts. It's cute. So everybody go read this book. Go read this book. This is really good timing for this book to come out. I'm sure publishing thought about this because this is like with the plant thing, it feels really harvesty, but with the witchy magic thing, it's really nice for spooky season. Like
Yes.
you can enjoy this thing from now right up into the chilly season, sipping some nice herb tea and
Uh,
feeling like something magical might happen from it.
uh,
So
I love this. Yes.
grab it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it comes out on Tuesday, but you can pre-order it wherever books are sold, and if you pre-order it and you wanna email me, I'll send you some swag.
Nice. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll put those details under the replay.
Mhm.
And if you have any trouble, know you can always go to Blackwell's um, out of Oxford and they will ship anywhere in the world.
Amazing. I did
Yep.
not know that. That's
Oh, yeah,
incredible.
they're great.
The swag I can provide is probably just US based. Sorry, folks.
That's all right. That's
Sorry.
all right. We'll come up with European swag of some
Oh,
sort in
yes,
the
you can have
future.
digital swag.
We'll get, we will do that. But read the book and thank you so much for being here, Jenny.
Yeah, this was so lovely.
All righty. Take care. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.